Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. I am so sorry to keep you waiting. I was messing around with the green screen again, and I did not have luck this time. So I very cathartically ripped it down off the wall. That's something for later. Sorry about that. I had a beautiful living room scene behind me that was decorated for Christmas. Screw it. 3 tiers in a bucket. Let's go. Happy Monday. Great to see you. Welcome back, everybody. I had a very busy weekend, and I can't wait to share as much as I can with you during the next hour. I don't think we're going to get to all of it because this was a weekend of bumping into rugs left and right, tripping over rugs left and right, lots of jack trippers. It seemed like every place I went, I encountered a bunch of rugs that I wasn't expecting to find. So obviously there's nothing for me in the world that's better than that. Oh, wait a minute. Let me get this up off there. Sorry. I thought I was doing so well this morning. Oh, gosh. Well, I hope you all had a great weekend. And let me say good morning, Robin. Good morning. It's great to see you. I can't wait to get back to Wisconsin. I'm scheduled to go, I think, in May. There's something happening there. Kaz told me about some kind of festival or something. I'll definitely be there for that. Maybe I'll be there before. So much fun out there. I was talking about the Wisconsin group of buddies this weekend when I was with the Woolmingtons, because the Woolmingtons are very similar energy, a very fun, loving, wacky, wild group. And I thought, man, these two groups would go so well together. Too bad they're on opposite sides of the country. Not quite, but pretty close. Catherine, great to see you. Good morning. And oh, it's 38 degrees in Southern California. Wow. I'm surprised. I didn't think you got that kind of temperature. I hope you're all nice and bundled up. Maureen, great to see you. Good morning from rainy Michigan. Perfect day for baking cookies. Absolutely. Lemon shortbread cookies at that. That sounds amazing. I love lemon anything. April, good morning in Illinois. Great to see you. Kirsten, I owe you a message this morning. I haven't had a chance to connect yet. So happy to see you, my buddy, in Vermont. I was going to say Wisconsin, in Vermont. Great to see you. Good morning. And good morning, Gray Aria. Great to see you. I was struggling. I'm going to need some help later. Dee, great to see you again. So I went to the Wilmingtons this weekend to visit Dee and some of my other buddies there. I have that in the slideshow for today. Dee, it was so great hanging out. You know, that the Wilmington group they're the Woolmingtons in Wilmington, Delaware. And Dee, it's such a friendly, warm, welcoming, super down-to-earth group. And I was saying with Dee yesterday in messages when I got back, I feel so relaxed when I'm there because everybody's so nice and friendly. I heard burps. I said, maybe next time I come, there'll be some farts or something. Who knows? Who knows what will happen next? But it was a super, super, stress-free chance to sit down, chat, work on my project, pull my project out, work on it some more, pull it out some more. But it's such an inviting and companionable atmosphere at the Wilmingtons. Highly recommend if you are in that area. Dee, there were people who were hooking, doing. Nancy was on the sewing machine, right? She was working on a vest. Kathy was working on cross stitch. There were people doing different things. It was a lot of rug hooking, but it was so super fun, and the atmosphere was great, and I really needed that. And I love you, and I can't wait to come back and see you all again. Catherine, great to see you. Good morning. Goretti, I haven't seen you for a while. Is it gloomy in Ontario? Well, it's beautiful up there. I'm happy to see you. I'm happy that you're here. Let's get rid of the gloom. I have a good show for today. We'll get as far as we can get. So let's just start. So this weekend, on Friday, I left first thing on Friday morning to connect with my friend Shannon. And let me show you Shannon because I don't know if you can picture her, and she does all our gallery night prep for us every time. So we did a selfie here at Hagley Hall, which it's either in Wilmington or right outside Wilmington. So it was dangy cold. Like it was colder than here for sure. So this is Shannon, and she does, when you're sending her your stuff. Joyce, great to see you. Good morning. when you're sending stuff in for gallery night, it goes to Shannon and she kind of assimilates it so that I can start uploading it into the program that I use. And then we have gallery night. And without Shannon, really, there wouldn't be a gallery night because it's extremely time consuming culling all of that and pulling out the text and the photographs and getting them in a form where I can use them. So always a huge shout out to Shannon and so much love. She helps with absolutely everything. You know, when I was driving down there, I did a classic Deanna. My back is so itchy and I've been putting that moisturizer shower gel on. Everything is so dry right now. I accidentally, when I was driving down, I'm glad you couldn't hear me in the car. I accidentally drove out of Delaware into Maryland and was on my way to Virginia to go until I realized, wait a minute, Delaware is like just a little bit bigger than Rhode Island. How could I have another like 2 hours and 40 minutes? I had the wrong Hagley Hall in there in the GPS. So I backtracked. And in doing so, it was kind of fortuitous because, and I honestly did not do this on purpose, but I realized because then I was ahead of Shannon. She was like mirroring my timeline, and I screwed my timeline up. So I ended up coming back into Wilmington, and I remembered there was this great antique store called, I think it's called Aunt Martha's. So I went in there, and it was really beautifully decorated for Christmas. And they had a bunch of hooked rugs, if you're nearby. And this was one of them. I ended up just getting some books and some cookbooks and stuff like that, fancying myself a cook, which is probably never going to happen. This is one of the rugs that I saw. This was one of the least sort of, this is one of the newer ones. And it was actually mounted to a stretcher frame. I have the photograph tipped because it was on the floor. Well, it was on the wall, and I took it down, and I knocked some stuff down, and I thought, let's not do that again. I was lucky nothing broke, so I just put it down on the floor. But this is probably a commercial pattern. I would think like Happy de Franza or maybe a Bev Conway, something like that. It must be a commercial pattern. Nice fat cat, really cute. I like the little marking on the leg, real sweetheart, nice primitive piece. This was $65. I didn't need it, so I didn't get it, but it's there if you need it. And there's 4 other hand-hooked rugs that are there that I thought were extraordinary. So we linked up and we drove over to this Hagley Hall, and it was so beautiful. It was really an empire. This property belongs to the DuPont family, and it's hard to imagine, but I didn't realize there was ever a time when the DuPont family wasn't like super, super, super wealthy, but there was a time because they had this gunpowder business happening at these mills that they built on this location, and they're still there for the most part. There's been a lot of blowing up of stuff accidentally on that property, unfortunately, including a lot of people. Very dangerous business when you're making gunpowder. And they weren't super wealthy, I learned on the tour with Shannon, until the Industrial Revolution. And at that time, they didn't get rich making gunpowder for guns. They got rich making gunpowder to blast rock so highways and train tracks could be set through, right across the country. So that's when the wealth happened. And it is an empire of a place. We had no idea that there were so many things to see on this property. We got there at like 2 p.m. and we thought, let's do it. And, they kept emphasizing to us we didn't have time to do everything. We did the part that was important, that's for sure. But there was a lot of other stuff going on, and I was a bit sad we didn't have another couple of hours. April, great to see you. There was a whole museum of patents, like buying patents for inventions, a whole museum of Victorian era patents, including this doll that jumps rope, right? Like, it was so neat, and we could have been in here for 2 or 3 hours. Some of the patents have been seen on Antiques Roadshow, but it was like, this is one display out of many rooms of patents, and every one of them shows you an item that is absolutely bonkers and interesting. Like, what the heck is this? A duck stool. Duck stooling. What does that say? Duck stooling. That doesn't sound right, does it? That doesn't sound like something you'd want to buy. Boot for duck shooting. Okay, shooting. That makes more sense. Stool for duck shooting. Okay, interesting. Don't ask me how this works. It's one of those things. It is a boat. Is it? Oh, it's a boat on which to shoot ducks. Okay, I got it. But why are there legs attached to it? Like, that's the part I don't get. Are your legs supposed to go through the boat, like with waders on? Oh, okay. Yes, the answer is yes. Okay, well, now it makes sense. But you can see just looking at this, it's very odd, isn't it? Like the Flintstones. Totally like the Flintstones. And I guess like maybe the thing would have those decoy swans on it to attract other ducks while you're standing there in the middle holding a rifle. I mean, it's so cool. All of the inventions here were so cool. And again, we could have stayed there forever, but we wanted to get to the main house because we didn't know what was there. Foreshadowing, we did not know what was there. Um, so first we were stupid and we were kind of like fooling around looking at other stuff. And I am very glad we saw the gingerbread house exhibit because who doesn't want to see a bunch of adorable gingerbread houses? I think you can actually go online at Hagley House and look at. You can look at. I remember the guy Peter, who was the tour guide, telling us you can check out all of the different gingerbread houses and vote on which one in the youth category, the juvenile category, and then again in the adult category. You can vote on them because there's winners every year. And this was so cute. I mean, I was lamenting that when we went to Concord, Massachusetts last week for Thanksgiving, it was too early and they didn't have up their display of gingerbread houses that are made locally. I was super disappointed about that. And they also didn't have up their poinsettia tree. So this kind of made up for that because it was a room full of, sorry, I have something on my lip that's driving me crazy. This was a room full of gingerbread houses that local people had made. And I took pictures of all of them. This was one of my favorites. It's obviously a movie theater from back in the day, one of these old-fashioned ones you would routinely find on every main street, and they're playing the movie White Christmas. I thought this is just perfect, just beautiful. Here, let me show you a couple more. I took too many pictures of gingerbread. This one is gorgeous. I don't think this corresponds to anything on the property, but the property is early Victorian, like it's early 19th century, most of the buildings. Again, at Hagley Hall, everything has, like, I don't know how to say it delicately, but exploded. Like, sooner or later, everything seems to have been blown up and rebuilt. And that's, part of the sort of dark history of this place. But at the same time, there is a range of architectural styles. It is predominantly Victorian. And this, I think, reflects that moment. But, each one of these gingerbread houses, and you can see how they set them up. There's a few on each of these, what are these, like bobbin tables? Is that what you'd call these things? I thought it was so appropriately set up in the old barn. And the old barn is actually old. It hasn't been, exploded in the last 100 and something years. It was like a Victorian era barn, but you can see they draped textile and they put some displays up with some fairy lights, and they've got these cable spools. Thanks, Kirsten. They've got these cable spool tables. I ought to know what these are because we had one in our backyard growing up, and I have no idea when my dad would have got a cable spool table. He was definitely not handy, and it was in our backyard forever, and we used it as a table, and at the same time got the most splinters anybody could ever get in one sitting using these things as tables. I think these were sanded off and looking really nice. BZ Platt, great to see you in Missouri. Welcome, good morning, and happy Monday. This was so beautiful, so much fun, really put us in the mood. Shannon took a bunch of corny photos of me, but I just want you to know how festively I dress when I'm on these kinds of events, right? Like visiting I figured, let me wear my sweater with the birch trees and the reindeer. Let's just do it. Let's just do it. That was pretty moderate, actually. The grounds were so beautiful at this place. Now, listen, I know that there's another house in the Wilmington area. I almost had it. That is more famous, and it's a later Victorian era house. It's a Gilded Age era house. What am I thinking of? I didn't go. Dang it! Somebody's going to know, right? It's right in that area. It is by far the more famous house. It might be another DuPont house. I'm not sure, but they also decorate hugely. Oh, thanks, Dee. You're going to send in the link for the entries for 2023. Thank you. Dee, what's the other house that's right there that's more famous? Nemers. No, that's where you guys went for they have a whole Christmas event. Oh, hello in Babylon, New York. Is that upstate New York? Oh, Ooh. No, it was a different one. It had, it'll come to me, but hopefully not at 3:15 in the morning. Winterthur. It is Winterthur. Thank you, Sandy. It is. And I didn't go there, and I heard that that also had astonishing display for Christmas, and it was very well decorated. Yes, we got there. Ding, ding, ding. I'm going to sleep through the night now. Thank you. I know it was also beautiful, but I have to tell you, next time I'm going to do Winter Thor and this one, but I have to tell you, this one was the right one for me, and it's going to be the right one for you, and guess why? We walked along the grounds. Peter was walking us. He was our outside guide. What a sweet man he was. We approached the building, decorated for Christmas. You can see the wisteria vine that's creeping in front of the house, right? I thought you were supposed to take those down, but they said in the summertime, in the spring, it's beautiful flowering purple wisteria, and it's just a sight to behold. And they make a lot of like soaps and candles and things at Hagley House with the petals of the flowers, not just the wisteria, all through, the 3 seasons that you might get flowers to give you their scent and their petals. I walked through the door. You'll have to forgive this photo. This is the best of like 100 photos I took. I walked through the door, get ready, um, and I saw this framed photo on the wall. And the guide, we had a different guide at that point. I think Sherry, something like that. She was very nice. She wanted to tell us about the house, and I have to say my brain immediately checked out because I saw this photo and I said, oh my God, those are hooked rugs on the floor, for sure. For sure they're hooked rugs. They're not braided rugs. They're not woven rugs. And then I kind of stopped listening, shame on me, because there were so many hooked rugs in this house, I cannot begin to tell you. As soon as I saw that photo, we turned the corner and I saw that welcome mat. I'm going to say something awful right now. Are you ready? You ready for something awful? If you are watching this show and you have a rug hooking business that is larger than Ribbit Candy Hooking, please do not, again, look at all the photos that I put up here to post for these commentary shows that are travel shows and buy the rights to all of the rugs so that the rest of us can't do them. No thanks. I'm kind of done with that. That was my nasty advertising bit for today because it's happened so many times. Every time I find a house that has a wealth of Victorian era rugs that are legitimately in the public domain, bad things happen. Let's leave it to that at that. Because I've already written to this house, I would like to go back and look at the rugs better. This one is a less interesting one, and I have a feeling this is a newer one. But every room we went in, right? I know there was a great history happening in this house. I know one of the descendants of the original DuPonts, who would have been wealthy in our own right, obviously, moved back into this property and wanted to kind of update it, right, in the style of the early 20th century. So we're seeing furniture from the Georgian period, which is the original house, period, to the early 20th century. And it has a very female touch, which made me, I don't know, some houses have a real sort of masculine feel, you know what I mean? I feel so at home when I see like these nice colors and a lot of textile art. There's a lot of playfulness happening here. And so many rugs, but they were all with very few exceptions. I'd say there's probably 30 to 50 rugs on display in this house, but they're all hidden behind stuff and there's ropes in the way. So Shannon did a wonderful job at talking to the guide, while I leaned precariously over ropes taking pictures of stuff. It was just the two of us on the tour. Now, I said to Shannon, because we said, I want to document this house better. I want to go back and I want to make an appointment to talk about looking at these rugs, seriously looking at them so we can clock them as rug makers, as historians. This is our history. And it's kind of sitting there on the floor, not really in view. Some of them are, some of them aren't. Who cares? The lady of the house, the last DuPont who owned and lived in the house before she died, and it was willed to be a museum. She loved hooked rugs and she collected them, among other things, pressed glass, eagles, whatever. The one I was interested in was the hooked rug collection, and she's got them scattered everywhere. They're almost on top of each other in some places. And I really wanted to see them because they're original hooked rugs. I don't think there's any commercial rugs among this lot. And I'm already in touch to make an appointment to go back Dee, we should talk about this together because Dee had the great idea of doing a hook in there too, in the soda house or one of the other buildings on the property where you could get together as a group, have a hook in, have a private tour. Yes, I love them too, but you know what about these muted rugs? This one, like so many of them, are in extreme danger because you can see the light is blasting right over it and it's turning white. This was the case with lots of the rugs. There was beautiful natural, obviously the winter light is very strong. Beautiful light coming through, but it was bleaching these textiles. And I said to Shannon, I'm guessing that there is not, I'm not being critical, but I'm guessing that there is not a sort of textile conservator associated with this property, because if so, I can't imagine that this would be overlooked. This is the case in many cases. Dee says yes, they have they've had two great hook-ins at the soda house. We need to bring it back. We do need to bring it back. Dee, this was pre-COVID, right? And we need to bring it back. So this is one of the things that I want to talk to them about, like imminently. Let's get something on the calendar. And let's get a private tour in here. Now, if you're looking at this rug and thinking, God, that's a beautiful rug, I think it's actually of the house, but it's very hard to see because it's bleached. Now, if you're thinking, what a shame, this is awful, it is a shame and it is awful, but it has been down on the floor where the previous, where the last owner put it. In that regard, I understand, right? Not everybody is as interested in textiles as we are, right? This could be recovered, right? There's two things that you could do with this rug to recover it. I think this is the one that the guide said is the image of Hagley House. You will be able to see the actual pattern when you flip the rug over. So think about it. It's always faded a little bit on the front, a little bit. This is faded a lot. When you flip it over, you're going to get the mirror reflection of the exact rug with the original colors. That's never hit the sun. So worst case scenario, somebody flips it over and makes it, just makes a copy of it that's an exact copy in the same colors as close as possible, and you have the rug back. And this rug goes into storage. This rug might be restored by recoloring it, doing very, very localized painting on the surface of it with the original dye colors, which could be figured out. They might be natural colors, right? So that's tricky. But if this is a hooked rug of the house, it probably dates to the 1920s when the last DuPont lived in the house. Yep, exactly. I see trees too, but there's a house in the middle of it. And yeah, since that's the case, we're probably looking at, we're not looking at natural dyes, we're probably looking at aniline dyes. And we're probably looking at Cushing dyes, which have been there since the late 1880s, everywhere. So if I look at that color palette, it would be possible to remake this rug. I mean, I don't know that I have the time for it, but it would be an interesting thing to think about and talk about. Thinking about taking on projects at these historic houses that are near you and near me. Wherever you're living, right? There's going to be, and please put the feelers out and check out particularly at this time of year, when they have open houses and they're having wassail days and people are gathering and singing carols and doing holiday stuff, most of the historical societies and homes are open, right? If you can go in and kind of clock who's got hooked rugs, what condition are they in, initiate conversations about hooked rugs, please come back to me with the information. Let's centralize it. Let's figure out where the hooked rugs are. We say this all the time, but I know there's not a lot of new viewers out there. Let's talk about where the hooked rugs are, which ones are commercial patterns, which ones are original. Not that they're not all beautiful and important, they are, but the ones that are original patterns really, for the sake of our history, need to be recorded. So even if it's with a camera, we're recording them and saying, this in 2025, this rug is at this house, right? Let's do as much of that as we can in 2025, really. I think it's really important work to document it. This is an area of collecting and an area of textile art, folk art, that is not recorded well at all, right? And it's kind of up to us because there's not a lot of people looking at hooked rugs still. As I went through the house, I'm just seeing them all over the place, and I, in many cases, can't get any closer to them, which was frustrating. I think I got around the side and got a little bit closer to this one. But as I went room to room, there were so many examples of really lovely rugs that were this one I could get to. You can see it's in the light. and it's under a table, and that part's fine. This was such a large rug, I couldn't get a head-on view. This is one I would have liked to have taken a much better picture of, because I feel this rug is extraordinary. Let's look at it from this point of view first, and then we'll look at it from a different vantage. So they, as they should, have furniture, right? In this case, this is like a card table, very female scale card table. All the furniture is out on and around the rugs, as it should be. That's all fine, right? There's not people walking on any of the rugs. So that part is good. Because in some historic houses, you know, you go and it's like there's a herd of elephants like walking through the historic house right on top of the rugs. You can see loops coming out. You can see loops like on the floor from the edges where people's boots have caught. That's not happening at this house, but you can see that the light is vicious. And that makes me worried and sad even more for this piece, because I feel this is such an important piece. It's enormous. It's probably not enormous, but it's probably, I would say, maybe 40 something, 50 inches across. It is a goodly size. It is not a commercial pattern. This is a design that somebody drew probably with a piece of charcoal from the fire right onto burlap. And the person who did this truly in their heart was an artist. We see a lot of hooked rugs that are kind of goofy looking and very, very naive. And sometimes it's naive charming, and sometimes it's just naive disastrous. They're all valuable. They're all special and different. But sometimes a rug that isn't original makes your heart like beat crazy, crazy beats. And this is one of them, because this is such a profuse collection of flowers in this sort of bowl with the ear handles. There's even a well-articulated flower on the bowl. Beautiful decoration. It is just gorgeous. The aesthetic is smart. The fact that the urn or vase is down at the bottom in between the oversized lamb's tongues, which then are used, the lamb's tongues are populated with specific flower species. So absolutely brilliant and beautiful. We've got a border that really respects and imitates the shape of the bouquet itself. It's not going all the way around. This person was not doing square peg and circle hole. They understood that the top was already full and the shape was excellent. The shape is like a peacock's tail, right? So this is very good. Aesthetically, this is very good. The background is done, it was probably done in all blacks. So we now call this antique black. But you can see, because of the dye properties from one strand of wool or whatever the material is, linen, any kind of sort of flax products, wouldn't be a synthetic yet, but it's not necessarily wool either, all of it. It was dyed differently, separately, and wore differently. So we're getting streaks, marble cake streaks of grays, because that dye in some of the strands has broken down so completely that it's definitely not black anymore. But I can guarantee you it was black then. Around the border, we've got one black cell and some streaking in the other cells. It makes me wonder if the border lamb's tongues were originally a different color. Jessica, great to see you. Judy, great to see you. Jenny, great to see you. Judy says, I wonder if it's possible to place an inconspicuous UV film over the windows that would allow, that's a great idea, the effect of light streaming in, but reduce the damage to textiles. And I don't know the answer to that, Judy. That's a great thought, and that's an important thought. And, you know, the good thing and the bad thing is that, you know, the good thing is that the rugs exist. The good thing is that they exist in these small historic houses and museums, right? Where one might stumble upon them the way that Shannon and I did this weekend and say, whoa, there's a lot of rugs here. Holy smokies. At the same time, sometimes historic houses, as opposed to, for example, when I go to see my sister at Yale, right? And I go to the British Museum of Art at Yale where my sister works. I mean, there is somebody every 10 seconds checking the thermostat on the wall, that it's not just the temperature, it's conditions in general. Dampness, everything. Was somebody sneak smoking? Were a bunch of people like smoking pot in the bathroom, then come in with this wave of smoke stuck to their clothing? It monitors everything. It monitors conditions. And that's because it's Yale. But that kind of technology isn't present at all of these sort of smaller host venues, whether they're historic houses or societies or big, mansions. If they're open to the public, they're probably struggling with money, number one. Number two, they probably haven't at this point invested heavily in technology that would ensure the longevity of textiles, because people have not historically been super interested in textiles since the 20th century. We are, but it's more people are interested in who made the card table, right? Who made it? Who carved the fireplace? And all of these things are important, right? What kind of pottery is that? What kind of china is that? What's the pattern on the china? Who made it? But there are far fewer people saying, is that a hook rug? And is that sitting in the direct light of the window right now? And it's partly an awareness problem. I think in part, the emphasis has just been on other art objects and other sort of avenues for such a long time that textiles have fallen by the wayside, and people keep restoring and remaking curtains and upholstery on these beautiful, unique textile pieces. But with a rag rug, you can recreate the design and people go, oh, look, that's the house. Isn't that pretty? But you cannot 100% restore a hooked rug to the original state of being, because those fibers are gone. It was probably somebody's pants and it's long gone. So in that regard, it's an awareness thing, right? Oh my God, Maggie, it's been forever. I sent you messages on the phone. I was so worried about you. I would like to see you too. You're coming to see your family. Let me know when you're coming. I was so worried about you. I sent you messages. I wonder if your phone number changed. I got very worried about you. I named one of the roses for you that's going into the rose book. I wanted to be sure you saw it. Sorry, we'll catch up. We'll catch up in a little while. Jenny says, hello from Alaska. Oh my gosh, it's a freakish 42 degrees. That's not good, is it? Not good for you. No. So happy to get to join you live. Oh, I'm happy you're there, Jenny. Got my coffee and you're ready to hear about the latest adventure. Oh, I'm so glad you're there. I'm sorry about the 42 degrees. That is worrying indeed. So rugs like this, right? Rugs like this. So we understand this. It doesn't help. I was shooting my mouth off a little bit to the tour guide, and not in a super negative way. I was just saying, God, it makes me really nervous. This is the part of the rug that wasn't being hit by the sun. This rug doesn't move, so it gets hit by the sun every day. And to your point, Judy, I don't know the answer to what can be done that's preventative. But I would think until it's clear what could be done, I feel like things like rugs like this need to be moved. I know that the sun travels, right? But these are big, vast rooms, and the sun can't reach every corner of the room. There are a lot of rugs down on the ground, but I feel like the priority has to be ensuring that the rugs, I'm not ready to leave that one quite yet, ensuring that the rugs are not suffering damage while they are on display for the public, because the next generation of people and the people after that are not going to be looking at the same object. And the thing is, they could be. That's the thing. It's not like this is quickly disintegrating. It's absolutely fine. You can see there isn't massive damage to this piece. There was no way that this guide was going to let me flip over the rug or cross the chain thing or any of that. I would have been curious to look at the back to see if there had been any patches done, to see the sort of quality of restoration, if any, had been done to it already. But looking at a rug like this, the entire history of rug hooking is right here in front of our faces. Design-wise, the person who designed this is someone who was looking at flowers, had a vase of flowers, and thought, I want something that looks just like that, doing what they know, right? You write what you know, you paint what you know, you use subjects that you're already familiar with and you already like. A vase filled with flowers. There's such an unbelievably sort of impossible quantity of flowers coming out of this vase that it's kind of comic, right? And so over the top, so beautiful, so many different varieties. We don't know anything about this rug as far as I know. We don't know if these are flowers from this garden, if this rug was made for the house. I'm thinking probably not, just because of the fact that the DuPonts didn't have a lot of money, and they had this gunpowder business. They were from France. So when they bought the estate, if I remember well, right, remember I was a bit distracted, if I remember right, they bought the estate. They needed someone else to kind of the equivalent of co-sign it because they were French and not American, so they couldn't just come here and start buying stuff. So they had to go through somebody to buy the property, and then they made no money. They were kind of borrowing from Peter to pay Paul for many, many years. I would say for generations, and it wasn't until going from like the 1800s, right, way at the beginning of the 19th century, to the Industrial Revolution, which was, it's going to be another 60 years before we get some traction going, and we're wanting to blast mountains, right, and lay down roads. As soon as that happens, the legacy of the DuPonts is 100% safe and assured, because at this point they happen to have, as luck has it, the product that the government needs, right, and they can't supply it fast enough. So their fortunes change in a snap when this change happens, right? It's a cultural change. It's just what you hope for. I remember years ago I worked for this little, let me think of a word that's not a swear, this difficult man in Greenwich, Connecticut. And I had just come back from college, and I wanted to pay one of the one student loan that I had outstanding. And I took a bunch of secretarial jobs, and he was not nice. And he had me on the phone almost every afternoon with Sotheby's bidding on things like Napoleon's desk. If I were to name like anybody who deserves to be sitting at Napoleon's desk, like in terms of it being, and nothing to do with Napoleon, just in terms of it being like an article of historical import and a unique and special item, he would be the last person I would think of because he was so rotten. Anyway, he made all his money. He manufactured, or he was involved in the manufacture of gas masks, and he didn't have a ton of money. And then 9/11 happened. It was right at this time. And I don't know if you remember this is a super negative memory, but right after 9/11, at least in this part of the country where we could see smoke from where we were, everybody bought a gas mask right away. And he was like immediately wealthy. And it's the same kind of story, isn't it? Like something happens culturally that changes, and businesses that are linked to sort of the manufacture of something that new industry depends on, those people are in the right place at the right time, right? It's not like they diabolically were brilliant and planned well, right? They were hemorrhaging money for decades and generations, and then all of a sudden they had lots. Now, these rugs, again, were collected in the early 20th century by one of the DuPonts, the last DuPont to live on the property. And she only bought them because she loved them, and she bought the ones that she loved. She probably did it the same way that this little guy did it, right, like in the 90s. She probably bought them from auction, maybe local auctions. There's certainly a lot down in the mid-Atlantic states as well. But she picked out ones because she had a very good eye, a very sort of educated art eye. She picked out ones that were important. This one is important. Even if it looked different in the 1920s, it is still obviously not a commercial pattern. It is a unique rug. Aesthetically, it's a perfect rug. The composition is very, very, very solid. It's an exciting rug. There's lots of colors. There's lots of interest. There are some rugs in the house, like the Welcome one, that are a little bit more mainstream. This is another one. This is another 19th century rug. It looks like it's been cropped from another rug. It looks like the tape that has been put around it has been put on it more recently. Could be from the 20s. This is tape that people would make on tape looms. We've talked about tape looms, right? We're seeing those like houses from the 1700s, 1800s. We're seeing tape looms where women, I say people, but they're always women, would sit with this tiny loom on their lap with, X amount of strands, 20, 50, whatever, and make these small pieces of tape that were between maybe an inch and 2 inches wide, one strand over another strand over another strand, almost like braiding, to make these long pieces of cotton or linen tape that you could then use to bind the edges of a rug. You could use them for upholstery, for other needle arts, for finishing curtains, and anything decorative that's a textile. It's super handy, but they're not new. However, this one looks a little more new. So it's not clear at all if all of the rugs, it's not clear from the conversation I had while I was there, whether all of the rugs were original to the house at the beginning of the 20th century, or if some of them are new, or if some of them are gone. And when you say, Kathy, good to see you, good to see you. You know, when you go to a house and there's this many rugs, you can't help but think, are there more in the attic, right? Because, I mean, she obviously had wealth and she had lots and lots of rugs. This one is kind of a slightly uncomfortable, I think, crop of a larger rug that maybe got damaged. This one seems to also have some damage. Do you see the hole in the on the top right rows? I feel like I can see to the burlap or the backing behind it. It's probably backed because that doesn't really look like the floor. It might be backed, and that's probably doing it worse harm. Again, I wasn't able to touch these rugs. I did this with like by zooming in from across the room. What was I going to say? When you've got a backing, an old backing, particularly burlap on a rug, burlap tends to get damp. And then gases build up between a burlap backing and the hooked rug, which is also on burlap. And then you get moisture. And moisture is not good. Moisture, mold, and then wear and disintegration, right? Those things all happen in that order. It is a beautiful rug, and it probably is the corner of a larger rug that had damage. I'm just guessing. I certainly don't know, because the border is a bit irregular, which makes me think that somebody thought, well, this part is mostly okay, and lopped the corner off a much larger square or rectangular rug. But maybe the very edge of the rug had been worn from people walking right over the edge, right? When the edge does not have a heavy tape on it like this one does, and it's just loops, right? No kind of protection on the edge. That's the part of the rug that always catches your foot. And people would have always worn shoes back in the day because it was damn cold, wasn't it? Unless it's summertime. You're getting a lot of wear and tear and damage on the edges of these rugs. So it could be that the edge was worn, this part was good, and that the rug was cut, it could be, and taped, right? But not quite even because of wear, possibly. All we can do without further information is to look at these rugs and say, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense. The design of that last rug didn't make a lot of sense to me unless it was a piece of another rug. Now, I'm guessing this eagle on the table really is stealing the show in this photo. There's so much pretty sort of women's furniture in Marty. Great to see you. They are so beautiful. You can see two rugs in this shot, but the eagle is stealing the show. I think that is a nutcracker because remember, she also collected eagles. Every photo I took, I'm just catching sort of a glimpse of a rug and a rug beyond that rug. As you can imagine, it was making me crazy. I took pictures of other things too that I thought were inspirational. Like, I forget what this is. And if you're thinking like an ice bucket, yes, but it had a different name. And it might be like Limoges or, I don't know, Fenton or something like that. I don't remember. But I just thought it was so beautiful. And this wallpaper in this room is hand-painted wallpaper. This is one of the most famous things about the house. It represents all of the different regions of early America. Rita, good to see you. Turn it upside down. Looks like it could be letters cut in half. Yes. Okay, I'm going back. I know what you mean. Let's do that. Let's do that. So I'm gonna move the photo. So be prepared because I know this can make me feel motion sick. It might make you feel motion sick. Hold on. I'm gonna rotate it twice. So let me give it one more. Rita, good eye. All right, let's see what we can see. Now I'm going to move it, take you on a ride, and let's stretch it. Rita, you are good. You are good, my sweetheart. All right, let's see. Welcome. Yeah, so it's definitely cropped. Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely, isn't that interesting? So who would have, isn't that interesting? Now I see another hole. I see a bunch of holes. Gosh, that's neat. It is a cropped rug. You know, it is a pretty rug, but somebody must, it is pretty. Is it like, you know, one of the great important rugs of history? No, but it does look like an original rug, and somebody loved it enough that they wanted to fix it as best they could. There's a lot going on with this rug, isn't there? I'm trying to see through it. It does look like it has a backing of some sort on. Or only a bit of welcome. Yeah, just half a welcome. Just like an welcome. A half a, yeah. It's so pretty. It's so pretty and it's so different. And that was a great catch. It's fun to find stuff like that, isn't it? It's really fun. Let me see. Oh, wait a minute. I overshot the mark. Hang on. Quick welcome. Don't stay long. Gets the point right across. That was really fun. I'm so glad we did that. That was really fun. And oh, Heidi, Huda Ava, great to see you and welcome. This was another glimpse in between some mannequins, and I mean, this is the kind of denseness. The hooked rugs in this house are just like almost stacked on each other. In some cases, they are. There's so many on the floor. You can see this would have hit her sweet spot. The DuPont, last DuPont woman, doubly, right? This would have been that would have crossed her collection interest category twice, with both being a hooked rug and being a hooked rug of an eagle. And there seems to be a partial flag above the eagle that's blue with red stars. So patriotic, lovely, beautiful, important rug. Lots of color change and fade in this one, isn't there? Which brings back questions of how do these materials, one of the most frustrating things historically in looking at these rugs is when you see rugs that had a black background and you get this kind of really pronounced high contrast striation. From one strip to the next, the color has worn down differently, but we won't know we'll never have access to the original pieces, right? People didn't hook rugs and then leave a bag of the materials in case anything happened with the rug and somebody needed to repair it, right? So we never get the opportunity to compare the original textile with the one that is hooked into the rug. We can only look at it and say, this part faded, this part didn't. In this case, this isn't fade that has anything to do with sunlight damaging it. This is fade from one strip, like one wool strip, to the next, because it goes black, white, black, white, black, white. And I can't imagine that was done on purpose. It is a super, super lovely rug that functions almost as a sampler with the eagle in the middle. There's a landscape of trees on the bottom, very naive. It looks almost like the eagle was taken from a reference, like an etching or a painting, or maybe even a piece of carved furniture. Because if you look at the way that the trees are drawn at the bottom, they're not that good, right? They're super folky, and it's fantastic to look at them, and we want to see folk art that's very naive, but there's a different artistry level between the eagle and the trees, and that's probably because they had a reference that was immediately in front of them. Maybe I wish I could get back in that room right now. Maybe there's an eagle carved into the fireplace or something like that, and they were able to look at it really carefully while they worked. Those great big Jack and the Beanstalk flowers on the side flank the composition like bookends, and that is smart. Really, really good composition and lots of different motifs. Another one that I'm seeing from across the room, I feel like this is a later one. I feel like this is an early 20th century one because of the color palette. We're not seeing a lot of background fills that are like celery green, sage green, nice, light, peaceful colors until we hit that colonial revival period. And that's the period that this house is decorated in. The thing right above it, right? Colonial revival. All of the furniture that you're seeing, if it's not Georgian, for the most part, it's colonial revival. And all of those pretty light colors came in right on the tail of the Art Deco movement. People were using them more for household stuff, and certainly a rug like this has a more female feel to it by the nature of the motif, right? A basket of flowers, a border of crazy quilt border with sort of floral colors, more feminine. If this rug existed in a home and was meant for utility, it would be in a room where a woman would sew or sit or sleep or wash, but it wouldn't be in the living room, would it? Like this, this is not a man's rug, and this is not a neutral rug, but it is a lovely rug. And luckily, men were in very few rooms of the house in the 19th century. If we're talking about like a not a one-room house, right? A house where there was some money. We know that different rugs were intended, geometrics, very female compositions and color palettes were intended for rooms that company did not go into, because more sort of generic rugs with more mass appeal to men and women were intended for more public spaces. But we get snatches of these kinds of rugs in this house. I just couldn't get any closer to them This is one, luckily, I could be near. Greyhound, right? This is an extraordinary composition. Everything about this is extraordinary. Different color stripes in a field above. Oh, so Rita, the one with the flag. So you're saying it sounds like the all the stripes that we were looking at under the stars was like a banner that came down behind the whole composition, right? That makes more sense. You know what? I'm going to tip this one too. So I'm going to take you for a ride again. Just look out because your screen is going to move. Let me just hang on. Wait a minute. Transform. Let's go clockwise. So it looks weird like this, but this is the best angle I can get. Extraordinary. Now, it's a funny composition because it's done in, I know it, right? It's done in blues. It's almost like we have like a biblical type of dog walking on water. So it like looks like a flood. You know, it might be that it was more green and the colors changed over the years. The dog is extraordinary. He is so finely shaped. His form is perfection. His little filigree tail, the ears, the way that they're propped on top of his head, the shape of the snout. It's very stylized, but it's extremely well done. It's curious. It must be a dark greyhound because it's like the underside of him is lighter. Normally it's the opposite, and we see the darker legs and shadow under the body. We're seeing it in reverse here. Interesting, doesn't matter. And this is a greyhound that is a pet, which of course not all greyhounds are to this day, but he's got his collar on and it looks like a fairly fancy collar. He's wearing something. And in the distance, little village houses. Interesting, because the person who made this hooked the dog very well, and they hooked maybe Bazanyai. Is that a kind of a dog, Rita? A kind of a greyhound? They hooked the dog as well as they hooked the houses. The houses are a little more primitive, but in terms of perspective, it's clear that one is behind the other. This isn't a typical folk art composition in that, you know, the dog is bigger than the houses, right? So we assume he's in the foreground, but the houses are different sizes. They are making an attempt at perspective, which we don't often see in hooked rugs of this age. No perspective. A breed of dog. Oh, interesting. Is it like a smaller greyhound, like an Italian greyhound, like a whippet kind of a thing? The border on this is interesting too. And you can see this rug is a good example of how when the rug is on the floor and it doesn't have a protective sort of edge to it, the edge gets really worn. Like people's feet just keep catching it. So this is what we get, but it's not so far gone that it has damaged the interior of the rug, and it's an important piece. Those weird red shapes coming in, interesting, isn't it? Those don't remind me of anything, and that's not a motif we often see in rug hooking. I wonder what those red things are. They remind me of like a Victorian photo album when you'd want to put the things in the corner of the photo to hold it. You know what I mean? It reminds me of that. But this is certainly not a motif that we see often in rug hooking, these unusual geometric corners. Now, this person did a lot with directional hooking, very thoughtful about the horizontal thrust of the hooking in the grass and even in the sky, whether it was for speed or whether it was just to keep the background calm. Directional hooking, right? No echo hooking, right? No marble cake hooking, straight across, horizontal rows like a typewriter. Return over and over and over. You would get the best speed working like this, but it also gives it a nice stable feel, and our eyes are focused on the dog and the village. I think this is an extraordinary house. Let's look at some more. Hang on, wait a minute. There we go. If you like that one, you're probably going to like this one too. I don't think this one is as good as the dog in terms of a composition, and this could actually be based on a commercial pattern. I'm not sure. There is some good symmetry happening here, which is usually a clue that it could be a commercial pattern. The horse is adorable and lumpy and clunky, and you know, shape-wise, he's very interesting as a folk motif. The shape of the head, the placement of the ears, that oversized eye, this is all very clever and it's well done. The things that are leaning me toward thinking this is a commercial pattern is the fact that the inner border is so well done, right? The horse isn't super well done, but that nice crisp but irregular line, almost like a tray in the center, is pretty perfect. Now, Does that mean it has to be a commercial pattern? No. It could be that this person took a tray off the sideboard, laid it on the burlap, traced around the tray, and then added the horse. That also makes sense and follows. Um, Rita. That is also possible because it is a difficult shape, and the person obviously isn't an artist. The horse is nicely done, a little bit stretched, a little bit elongated, but the really weird anomaly is the shape of the border because it is a difficult shape and it is perfectly done. So I would say either it's a commercial pattern and that was all drawn out and the horse just got hooked the way that he got hooked, or the person laid out that shape as a template or a stencil using a tray and then populated it with the image of the horse, which makes a lot of sense. Weirdly, making me think that it is a one of a kind, not commercial pattern. The symmetry goes corner to corner diagonally. So the northeast and the southwest, we've got a floral that's pretty identical. But then on the southeast and northwest, we have got kind of sprigs. I'm not seeing flowers. Are you seeing flowers? I'm seeing leaves, maybe a scroll. Unusual. And another thing that's unusual is on top of the horse, you see how one of those leaves is touching the border. It's only happening there, which it goes in favor of this not being a commercial pattern because somebody printing this pattern would not have made the mistake of letting that leaf touch. It could be that the person who hooked it made that happen, accidentally, by accident, whatever. So interesting to look at a pattern like this that I don't recognize seeing in other places and thinking about the likelihood of it being an early commercial pattern or something that someone drew. Now, I would think that this is an early commercial pattern. This could be a late 20th century pattern or a very, 19th century pattern or a very early 20th century pattern. This is still the era of hooking. This is my favorite, where we're seeing a simple motif like a bird on a tree, right? A parted branch, right? Very popular motif, but we've got this set into a light field, which says to me early 20th century. It's very colorful, which says to me early 20th century. It's still got that dark border with the kind of residue of a Victorian, very fussy, scrolly flower pattern that's sort of happening. We're not seeing big fat cabbage roses. We're seeing flowers that are maybe difficult to hook. The person who hooked this was not someone who was hooking with a lot of thought for shading, right? This is a very graphic handling of the entire rug. The flowers, the bird, the leaves, the way they got color change to happen in the leaves is to split the leaves in half, right? A little bit darker, a little bit lighter, and then one vein, right? Very, very formulaic of a darker color, splitting the leaves almost like stitches. Interesting. So this is not somebody who is going for realism. This is somebody who is looking at this and going, okay, I think I have red, done, wing. I think I have light blue, going to be also in the wing, and figuring it out as they go along. But this piece is so perfectly symmetrical and universal that I feel like I've not only seen this before, but I feel like I've seen this many times before. I could be wrong. You know what? I have a lot more slides, so I'm probably going to stop on this slide and we can return to this later in the week. I just wanted to let you know, besides rugs, I was sort of paying attention to the beautiful Christmas decorations that were here. There were table trees, which were much more common at that time in the 19th century, and full-size trees in other rooms. It was just a beautiful house. I hope if you are anywhere near Delaware that you would think about going to Hagley House and also Winterthur. I've got to get there next too. But you know what? I just want to give you one announcement, and I got a lot going on in my head too. I'm trying to get stuff ready for the next Magpie and a few orders I want to get going. I just want to tell you before I forget that Chance, that's the name of a woman who I met last year when I spoke at the Guild in Maine. I think it was Maine. No, it was New Hampshire. Kathy, what is that? The seaside, the seaport, I think Seaside. That was a fun talk. I think that was a Alice Butler talk. No, that was a Design Like. Super fun day. Wonderful group of people. It was just a while ago. But I met Chance there. And Chance is hosting a rug hooking exhibit at the Portsmouth, New Hampshire Library. and that exhibit will be up. Make sure that you look, or write to me, look at Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Look at their website, because this will probably be listed. The rug hooking display will be up between December 16th and January 23rd. Now, I'm definitely going to make the time to go over there and check it out. And I'm going to link up a time when I can get together with Chance, and maybe some other people will be there, and we can fool around together and maybe do a little bit of hooking or whatever. I'm going to try to piggyback going to the Portsmouth Museum to see this display, because there's hardly any displays. I want to support this. It's about 3 hours for me, so I want to try to combine this with going to maybe Strawberry Bank, which is that beautiful historical property that is also, it's like a village in the center of Portsmouth, with lots of beautiful 19th century homes that are now decorated for Christmas. And they are doing through December like the candlelit and lantern-lit tours. And you're able to go, it's like a village, right? You're able to go in and out of the different houses and maybe see somebody making, I haven't been there yet, for example, making a tin lantern, or making gloves, or selling stuff at the country store. Some of them are residences, some of them are businesses, but it's set up like a village, right? Like an old-time village. And talk about the perfect place at Christmas time, right? So I'm going to try to come up with a date, and I'll let you know when I do, in case you want a few of us get together up there and do it together. I'd like to figure out how to do Portsmouth Library to check out this rug hooking exhibit, and check out Strawberry Bank at the same time before December is up. So I'll be looking at my calendar for that, and I will let you know when I come up with a date that makes sense, because I know Chance on that end wants to meet and kind of talk through the exhibit, and I would so love that. That would be such a nice thing for us to do together. Listen, I'm not sure when my next date is, but I want to finish this conversation this week. Let me just look at the calendar really quick. And okay, so I go to Newport to sort out the Tigger stuff on Wednesday. I think I'm free tomorrow. Kirsten's doing her hook-in tomorrow from, I think, 11 till 1. Let me talk to Kirsten, and then I'll come back with to you with a date. I'm not free on Friday because I'm going on a school trip with Jocelyn to see the Nutcracker in a theater, I think in Hartford. And then at night we're going to my mom's to decorate her tree. So I won't be live on Friday, but I could, in theory, be live Tuesday or Thursday. So let's see how that goes. I will come back to you for that. I want to conclude this conversation, and I found a couple of rugs on my own at an antique store this weekend that I'm so in love with, and I want to share those with you too. So we'll do all that a little bit later, to be continued. Be looking for an announcement either in our Facebook group, which is Rug Hooking and Punch Needle Club, or in YouTube, right? If you subscribe to the YouTube channel, I will put up a post, right, that'll say, this is the next time I'll be live. Let's conclude this conversation about these beautiful rugs at Hagley House in Wilmington, Delaware, and look at a few more rugs that I found this weekend while I was out antiquing. Have a great afternoon.